What a warm welcome. Thank you. If there's one thing that I know I would love for everyone to know about me, it's how much I care about this work and how much I care about the international ed community. So I really, really appreciate your words. I am thrilled, along with Loui, to be here and honored to be the first guest in the second season of ISL ECIS Loft. And I want to invite everyone right now to connect with the sustainable resources that Loui and I have spent a lot of wonderful time enjoying putting together for you. We want this learning to last. And so if you go ahead and check in your chat, you'll see that there is a link. And that link will take you to our shared site. And you'll see in the background, there are some lovely roses, which is the national flower of Luxembourg. A big thank you to the International School of Luxembourg for making this possible. So that chat, I'm sorry, that link will be dropped in the chat throughout our time together, but it's great for you to reference it right now and even go ahead and bookmark it. All right, super. So during our time together, we're going to be talking about universal design for learning, and we're going to be making some conceptual links together about variability, goals, and choice. And of course, as you can see, we're going to be starting off with this idea of learner variability. And we know that we have the support of the International Baccalaureate, who have already stated in their DEIJ statement that embracing learner variability is a commitment that we all make as IB practitioners so that our learners are not excluded, as well as designing and developing a universally designed curriculum that is inclusive, fair, and accessible for all IB learners. So whether you're working in an IB school or not, those are words to get behind. So I want to start off our time together by introducing you to Martha. And Martha was found to be the most normal woman in 1945. Right after World War II, when the entire world was focused on standardization, which was helping the whole world get back on track after World War II, whether it was manufacturing goods or creating housing that was affordable and very much alike, we all really looked at this idea of what the average was, and we reached really far. In fact, in Ohio, a state in the Midwest of the USA, there was a contest, and they asked for people to send in their measurements to see if those measurements compared to what they deemed as the average woman. Well, they got over 3,500 contestant entries, and only one contestant, Martha Skidmore, even came close to the average measurements of a woman. So we know that when it comes to our shapes, sizes, eye color, or the way that we see the world, there is no such thing as average, especially when it comes to our learners. So I want to clarify for you for just a moment what it really means for us to think about diversity and variability. But Loui, my co-host and close colleague, will do a much better job. So I'm going to pass it over to her.
Right. So what we're going to be introducing to you now is this concept of learner variability. So I am going to ask Beth, did the slide forward for you?
Yeah,
For
we're on
everyone?
slide number 5.
Okay, great. Just making sure. This concept of learner variability, this is not something that's just made up. This is actually how our brain works. And so in brief, when we think about variability, we've all heard the phrase that we all learn differently. Every snowflake is different, just like how we're all different. But here's what variability does. There's an additional layer. We learn differently, but we learn differently because of our interaction with the context. And the context is the stuff around us and also within us. So that makes it really different than how we think about diversity. So as you see on your screen here, we have these areas, cultural, racial, gender, physical, neuro, diversity and interests and beliefs. And those hold true when we're thinking about diversity. But when we're thinking about variability, it's our interaction with that context. So like I said, the within, our emotional state, our background knowledge, just kind of who we are as people. But then also that's interacting with the things that are around us. So another analogy that's used is the fingerprint, right? We've all heard everybody has a different fingerprint, and I think that's actually still the case. But this also leans into this dominant feature, like Cast has told us, within our nervous system. So variability, it lives in our brains. It comes from neuroscience. So I don't want anyone out there to think, oh, it's just this thing. No, it is a neurologically backed piece of evidence about us. And so that is a grounding piece for universal design for learning. When we think about our learners and their preferences, sometimes that makes us lean toward this thought that learners have a specific kind of preference. But what Beth and I and anybody else in the UDL community want to do is put up a big stop sign right there and say, no, 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 stop. Because if you try to define yourself or others as having this specific mode of learning, this specific way of doing, you're actually locking down your brain. Our brains are fabulous, interesting, wonderful things that really do crave that novelty. Our brains want novelty to help us learn. And so when we believe that someone has a preference that they're going to stick with, we've limited that. However, when we provide options and that individual can choose the option needed for that moment, we're getting to learner variability, right? Within their context, what's going on inside and outside, they're able to choose. So they're able to lock into that or utilize that environment around us. So what we're going to give you the opportunity to do now for about the next 5 minutes is in breakout rooms, talk about this idea, this concept of learner variability. What does it mean to you? So you see the sticky note in the upper left-hand corner. It says, to me, this means, and then below that, it says, the challenge I see is, and this is what you're going to be talking about in your breakout rooms. So I believe we're getting those set up and we'll have the magic button pushed because I can see Nancy nodding her head. Are we ready to press the magic button?
We are, and I believe the time for this breakout session is
5 minutes.
Beautiful. Okay, everyone, please, I believe you're able to access the link now. Give me a thumbs up if that's true. I've already got some messages. So once you go into the breakout room, you will have access to the link. Each room has approximately 4, and there is 4 minutes, and then you have a 1-minute countdown, everyone. Okay, enjoy, introduce yourselves.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And I had a chance to pop into some of the rooms, and there was a lot of rich discussion and connection going on. So the loft is on fire. All right, so we're going to talk about the next conceptual link when it comes to really deepening our understanding of universal design for learning. And that is the importance of constructing clear and firm goals to allow for flexible learning pathways. And so we understand as practitioners, and everyone I'm sure has heard of all of the wonderful evidence that has been analyzed by John Hattie and his team of researchers, and they have found that goal setting, in particular personal best goal setting by learners, has a very strong influence and impact on learning at a 0.5 effect size. And so we know that it's not something we want to sidestep in the way that we're constructing our learning engagements. But just to be very clear about what this really means, in the UDL approach, we also want to be modeling very careful and learner-centered goals. And so we want to move past this idea that goals are all about the curriculum that's written. And we want to think about the intended learning and how we can really center these goals in this process around learner agency. So I'm going to hand it over now to my co-presenter, Loui, and she's going to share an amazing resource that she's created and that we can all learn from. So take it away whenever you're ready, Loui.
Thank you. So as I'm setting this up, I've written a book called Design and Deliver Planning and Teaching Using Universal Design for Learning. And in that book, it first came out in 2014, but in that book is a story that tends to resonate with educators. And I chose to turn that into a video, which now you can see my screen. So what I have to, oh, you know what? I'm going to do this really quickly because I want to make sure that I did the whole magic, let everybody hear the sound option, right? We know that, yeah, okay. And really quickly, I want to express that the drawings that you're seeing were created by a young man who works for an organization called Exceptional Minds, and it's housed in California, although he lives in Alaska. And individuals that are associated with this organization live all over the world. But these are individuals who identify as neurodiverse and have a deep passion for mostly digital arts. And it's working with them as collaborators so they can practice their skills and work into the industry more for creating visuals. So I hope you enjoy this little story. You'll see the closed captioning on the bottom, and you'll also have access through the online notes that Beth shared earlier. After this, you're going to have a chance to put in some impressions in the chat, and we'll lead you through those. Or I'm sorry, we'll do it in breakout rooms, and then you'll have a time to interact through the chat also. So here we go.
Once there was a king who wanted a new path to the river. He called together his kingdom's best path makers and said, "Go out and create the best path possible to the river." The path makers went back to their workshops, gathered their path-making tools, and began their work. In a month's time, they completed their task. One pathmaker was driven by precision. She used a compass and created the most direct route. Another was driven by beauty. He knew of meadows with blooming flowers along the way and created a meandering, flower-filled path. The third was driven by physical challenge. She knew of steep inclines and deep descents and created a path worthy of mountaineers. At the end of the month, the king called them all together. While waiting for His Majesty, a conversation occurred. "I am sure my path will be preferred by the king because it is the fastest path," said the first pathmaker. "Oh, I'm sure you're incorrect," said the second. "The king enjoys beautiful things, and he will like nothing better than to see the natural beauty present within his kingdom as he takes his daily walks to the river." The third disagreed, saying, "You are both wrong. The king is a powerful man who enjoys challenge and strenuous activity. He will choose mine as the best path." When the king arrived, the matter was settled. "I took time this morning to explore each of your paths, and I want to thank you for your thoughtfulness, engineering, creativity, and persistence. I am delighted to have 3 ways to get to and from the river. On days when I am pressed for time and need to return for meetings with my council, I can take the direct path. On days when I am contemplative and want beauty at my side, I can take the winding path. And on days when I am agitated or I want to revel in my physical strength, I can take the challenging path." "But sire, which of us won? Which of us created the best path?" asked the pathmakers. "Ah, you see, I asked you to create the best path possible, which each of you did. Using your tools, gifts, and vision, you created 3 very different paths, which all take me to the same place. For this, I am grateful, as you should be. For now you have discovered that in your own differences is a strong similarity. You all achieved the same goal in your own way.
All right. Just want to make sure to appreciate those who are involved. All right. So at this point, let me go back over here. We're going to let you go into groups to have conversations about what you just heard. Let me share my screen. So what you all are going to be talking about is, in what ways did the king's stated goal embrace variability? So first we introduced you to the concept of variability, the differences. How did the king's stated goal, the path to the river, embrace variability? And then how can you apply the king's method of allowing for variability in your own goal creation? So at this point, let's go ahead and do another 5-minute breakout. And you'll take these questions with you. And Beth, these are also in the web page, right?
Yes, everyone will see that there's no need to take screenshots. You can go to our shared page and see all the resources and the transcript as well.
Great.
Okay, everyone, the rooms will be opening.
I'll go ahead and take you through this part. Now, you had a chance to chat about these things, but we'd love for you to also use an opportunity for using the chat, but in a slightly different way. So when you look at the screen on the left-hand side, we'd like for you to experience meaningful choice, but emoji style. So you're going to click on the smiley face that's underneath. If you open up the chat feature, you'll see that there is a space for the smiley face with the plus sign. You click on that and there's 3 dots to the right. And then you can type in the words seedling or hourglass or light bulb. And on the right side of your screen, you can see that what we're asking you to do is type in one of your takeaways from this conversation that you just had. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find somebody else's chat message, and you're going to respond to that by either using the seedling, the hourglass, or the light bulb. So if you want to use the seedling, then you're saying, wow, I'm ready to grow this in my own practice. If you want to use the hourglass, I want to take some think time to explore that idea, maybe dig in a little bit more. And the light bulb is, oh my gosh, that's a valuable new idea for me. So go ahead, populate the chat with your thoughts or somebody else's thought that was in the chat with you. And then once you're done posting, find somebody else's and react to it. And what we would love to see is that everyone has a reaction. So we're going to give you a good, healthy 2 minutes to do this. So let's take part in it. I'm going to open up the chat on my screen too, so I can see everybody taking part. Karen, thinking about UBD? Yes. Understanding by Design? That is a partner with Universal Design for Learning. It's actually in the background design when they were creating this framework. So I love that you saw that connection.
And I just want to take a moment just to lift up the craftsmanship and care that went into making that video, and for you as the author of that story to illustrate it in such a beautiful way. It was just wonderful to see. So thank you so much for sharing that, Loui, with the whole community. So our time together is limited and we don't want to rush you, but we do want to let you know that on our shared site, for those of you who are new or joined us a little bit late, that link has been shared in the chat. I'm going to drop that one more time and hopefully it will work for everyone. Those are sustainable resources and options for you that you can take with you and build into your practice and share with your colleagues. We want UDL to grow in the international community, and resources are a wonderful way to make that happen. We're going to move on now to our third conceptual link in our time together, which is choice. And we just experienced meaningful choice. And as you could hear, Loui was honoring what we all know and love, which is the thumbs up symbol when we read something that we really appreciate. in the chat, but we also provided other choices that we believe would be meaningful. And we want to ask you in the chat, do you want to share a little bit about your thoughts about this question? What makes choice meaningful or unmeaningful? So let's just take a moment to let people populate the chat so we can all reflect a little bit. Yeah. And as we are sharing in the chat our answers to this question, what makes choice meaningful or unmeaningful? Yeah. I love that word genuine. Expanding on what that means for the learners. Connection. Oh, gives us ownership. That's right. Ensuring choice is authentic, congruent. Great. These are all wonderful reflections. And so as we're moving forward and working through this next concept that is a cornerstone of UDL, I'm actually not yet sharing, but I'm about to share. All right. Sorry about that. Here we go. And I'm going to ask the age-old question that everyone who's hosting a Zoom always asks, and that is, can you see my screen? Can you see my slides? I hope so. There we go.
Yes,
We're going to
we
talk.
can.
Great, wonderful. So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes choice meaningful and unmeaningful. So when we think about unmeaningful choice, we're talking mostly about choices that are really quite limited in terms of the information, quite often that teachers are providing for the learners. They're just not able to have the time or the ability to really evaluate fairly. Oftentimes we as the adults in the room think everything's very clear, but they may not be very accessible for the learner. They may not have enough time to really process and determine what's really presented to them. And so they may actually take a passive stance. And we know that bureaucratic choice in a carrot and stick style can also be used, which is also quite unmeaningful for learners, where they'll have to earn their choices related to learning, not rewards, but related to learning. Or teachers are really set on providing choice, so they'll choose something that is very tokenistic, such as the color or the types of materials. So it's not really having an impact on the actual learning itself. So now I'm going to hand it over to Loui, and she's going to talk more about what meaningful choice can really mean in our lesson design.
So when we look across the literature and we examine what is talked about, there's two areas that are talked about. One is autonomy and one is competency. In those web-based notes that you have access to, if you're curious about what sources we're citing, those are in there. If that's the boat that you like to ride, I congratulate you. But these are three areas when we think about enhancing autonomy that we want to use. So helping those learners see their own values and their own goals connect to what's going on. So those approaches that align with the goal or objective that's going on. So they know what the goal or objective is because you've made that clear. You keep looping back to it. But then they also can see how whatever choice they're going to make is what's going to help them achieve that goal. We have to help them make that connection, and then offering that opportunity for the learners to discover their preferences that are in that moment. I'm going to loop back to this again, because remember, variability, it's in that moment. And a key thing, we have to get them to reflect on that too. Why did they make that choice, right? So the other one I talked about was competence. So when those choices are clear and straightforward, they can make those nice choices for themselves. I think we're all adults, and so we are all very used to being in situations where like we're given choices and we're like, okay, wait, too many, or I don't understand. I don't understand what I've just like one of the choices. It's very unsettling to our brains. We don't like it. And so That gets in the way of learning. So we want to make sure the clear and straightforward is there. That there's that process rather than it's focusing on the process rather than on their ability. So again, you're helping them march toward the goal. You're not making it in the way of achieving the goal. And then we want to have that social and collaborative learning because it's a cornerstone to learning. We know this. Thank you, Mr. Vygotsky, Dr. Vygotsky. All right, so this lovely table, so I brought a bunch of these ideas to Beth. I collected these things and I showed her a way that I had collected them all. But Beth, in her beautiful way of making things easily accessible visually, she created all this stuff. But anyway, this is one of the things that she's created, and it makes my heart soar. So you have this, you have access to this, and we just want to give you a second to look at choose 2 or 3 boxes and just read the 2 or 3 boxes, and they're color coordinated, blue or red, and you'll see the examples and how they relate. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute. It's hard, but I'll let you read through those. About 15 more seconds. And again, you have access to this. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward so that you can also see this representation of looking at enhancing autonomy or enhancing competence. Just a different way to see that information to bring clarity to you. And at this point, I'm going to hand it to Beth.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's hard to believe that we're actually coming to an end for our time together. And we want to say thank you once again to the wonderful people at the International School of Luxembourg, and of course, ECIS, who goes above and beyond to give platforms to build community and to share sustainable resources and to stretch our horizons as dedicated educators. We also want to spend just a moment to highlight a very new and very innovative UDL certification program that both Loui and I will be facilitating. We know that there are lots of great programs out there and courses out there that people have gleaned from and learned from over the years. We were determined to offer something that was really dedicated to the cultural connections within the international ed community. And we wanted to design this professional learning experiences through the lens of UDL. And what we have created is very unique. And we want to make sure that everyone knows about it. We're starting our first cohort in October. There are still places left if you would like to join, and know that you will be taken along in a cohort that will hopefully be full of close professional connections by the end of our 6 months together. But we also are setting it up so no matter what your level of expertise is, you are going to come out a practitioner of UDL who will be able to act as a champion within your learning community. Whether you are in a classroom or you have an active role within your school or learning organization, that's all we ask. For people who are not in a school at the moment, it will be very difficult for you to complete a portfolio, which will be the culminating project of our 6 months together. So again, I just want to thank ECIS for allowing us the autonomy and to help build your competence about universal design for learning through this unique program. Did you want to add anything, Loui?
Well, just at this point, we've given some time here for the end. If you have questions you want us to follow up on, if you want us to touch back on anything, then this is the opportunity for you to place that information into the chat. We have lots of people here, so we aren't going to do the whole open the mic thing. I think we've been advised to ask you to put those things in the chat. Now, I do see a please send a link for registration here. So we have that. And then also I know that that's been posted out there on social media. So Nancy, if you have that on hand, because I have to admit, I was very focused on this. Yay, Sarah, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah Kuka, we're so happy you're here. And thank you for putting that link in the chat. If you'd like to learn more about the program, that's there for you as well. Nancy, you will, of course, be sending out the link in to all registered participants.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we are not afraid of challenging questions. If you're sitting here going, I still don't understand, or this didn't hit a mark, or I have more questions, this is a lovely, nice, welcoming space, which means we welcome challenge questions. That's fine. That's part of growth. So please, if you have those, put them in here. Or if you're done, you're done. It's okay.
And because this is the launch of the 2024-2025 Loft, everybody who is here today and everyone who is registered or who has registered, if you put the code word LOFT, then you will get 5% off the cost of the cohort. So we will put that in a letter to you tomorrow with a recording of the session, with the link to the slides again, to the code again, which is Loft if you're going to register, and that will be sent tomorrow as a follow-up to the session that Beth and Loui did for us, because first of all, we were honored to have them as our guests as our first event for this year, and also as a gift for really being part of our Loft is that 5% off the registration for the cohort. And also to announce that Loui and Beth are also our lead UDL associates for ECIS. This is the first time we've ever had UDL associates for ECIS, so we're honored that they're taking on this role. So thank you so much. But please use the code. And again, we will send all these details in an email to you tomorrow with the registration link as well to the cohort that Beth and Loui just described. So I think we're ending on a positive. People love giveaways. So this is our giveaway for the end of this lot. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Nancy. You are, of course, a lovely and an expert facilitator. We were so honored to be here, and we just appreciate all that you do for the international ed community, and we're so honored to be your colleagues. Thank you for having us.